right, let's go ahead and get started with introductions tonight, and we'll go from there. Why don't we start with you, Mike, and we'll go this way. Please.
Mike Wachowski, Mark Twain neighborhood, 38-year resident of the creek. Half my life.
James Henley, his neighbor.
Robert Hartman, heading home. I'm the program director for Gateway Medical Respite, and I live at Seoul next door.
Chuck Holman, the Trumbull Village Neighborhood Association and the AMP plan.
John Comstock, Auckland Village, and Parkland Association.
Sandra Correa, resident of D6 Coalition.
Brittany Carnesis, Homeless Innovations Officer, and I'm located here in the Gateway Center.
Welcome. Sorry about that. How'd you? Doug Chaplin, City of Albuquerque, Associate Director here at the Gateway Center as well.
Natalie Vargas, president of Southern Pedro.
Wally Book, member of Parkland Hills Neighborhood Association.
Danielle Smith, I'm a forensic case manager in the behavioral health unit at Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office. So kind of like the county counterpart to APD's mobile crisis teams and ACS. And I'm also on the South San Pedro board. I live just right up the road.
I'm Laura Keene, Senior Crime Prevention Specialist with APDs.
Josh Richards, Commander, Southeast Area Command. Glad to be back. Sorry I was gone for so long. And I am a lifelong resident of Albuquerque, Mike.
But I bet you missed green chili during your time in.
You know what? So I do miss green chili, but it was the red chili. Because it was winter and I do a lot of like pozole and menudo in the winter. And I couldn't get any of that. I couldn't get red chili. It was
Okay, so the meeting purpose, this is a platform open to all members of the community action area with the goal to build consensus on the issues that neighbors want to address and to develop action plans by mapping assets from the community. This serves as an opportunity to ensure an equitable representation of voices from neighborhoods surrounding the Gibson Health Hub. Together, we will establish community guidelines and identify boundaries for the purposes of ensuring respect and courtesy, prioritizing productive ideas and communication to identify root causes of poverty, crime, and violence in the community. Our goal is to find a balance between moving our conversations forward and identifying greater solutions and intentions while still addressing concerns in real time. A couple of the ground rules: we ask that we be hard on the issues, but be easy on the people. We want to listen to learn as greatest extent possible. We want to respect who's ever speaking at the time and respect the listener as well. Stay on topic to respect the agenda and the time constraints. Set timing, follow up for dates for action. We'll do that towards the end. And be kind. Let's have some fun too. So that's great. Thank you all. Well, we're really excited, Commander, to hear about your time in Quantico and thank you for coming and having this presentation to share with everybody. So just turn it over to you. And
no worries. I was actually shocked that everybody wanted to hear so much about this. No, I actually was very fortunate. I was able to be a part of a really great program, a great training. The FBI National Academy, just real quick, just it's a history of excellence law enforcement training, and it's one of the premier trainings. It established its reputation. We'll get into it a little bit in the slides, but it is considered in my career field, in my career path, Naval Academy, West Point, the top school I can go to as a senior leadership official in law enforcement. So we'll get going. The birth of professional policing. So J. Edgar Hoover, 1935, decided that there was a gigantic disconnect between the FBI and what he was building and local law enforcement. A lot of it circled around corruption, lack of professionalism in American law enforcement. And basically that came down to we had no standardized training, no best practices, and no standardized funding. You go back to law enforcement in 1935, your average agency, to include APD, was probably 6 rounds, drop you off on a street corner. There's a payphone over there. We'll call and tell you where to meet you. And your training was OJT, on-the-job training, for about 3 weeks with the senior officer. who may have been on for 6 months or may have been on for 60 years. It just was a very word of mouth, good old boy system. Police academies did not exist. Professional firearms training, use of force, defensive tactics, de-escalation, verbalization, judo, none of that existed. Picture some of your old Western movies with like Doc Holidays and things like that, and we're going to deputize our buddies and go handle this at the OK Corral. That's what you had. So 1935, the study's put out, and he decides, based on that study, that we need to address some of these issues and we need to build a partnership with local law enforcement and start stabilizing and standardizing policing. And the first class was held in September of 1935. Funny story, it was actually in the heart of Washington, D.C. at the original Department of Justice building. If you go there today, the Department of Justice building is massive. So you go, oh yeah, you can house 25, 23 students. If you were there in 1935, it was about the size of this room. Little different, right? But again, like I already said, his vision was to elevate policing to a respected profession through rigorous standardized training. And that's where we start building out from this program our local law enforcement academies. We get the standard testing, the post police officer standard testing, showing you have different skill sets when you leave your basic training. It was definitely modeled partly on the British concept of national police training colleges and police force stuff that was going on in Britain. If you look at the way that Great Britain is run, even to this day, it's a national police force. It's not several different, or in our case, hundreds to even thousands of different law enforcement agencies across the land. This right here is Mark Lavender. He was my roommate for 11 weeks at the FBI National Academy. He's 51 years old. He's part of the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. He's a lieutenant. He actually runs the city of Atlanta district. So if we put it in perspective, he probably runs about 30 investigators, but he covers about 8 million people. It would be kind of, if we were to formalize our multi-agency task force team into its own agency that does all your critical incidents, officer involved shootings, big scandal type investigations with fraud, the DWI scandal would have went to them, those type things, right? Very good man. It was my only fear going there, and it was very well received. He was a lot like me. We're family men. We sleep 8 hours a day. We work out twice a day, and we don't really drink, so we didn't have any issues other than he snored like a banshee. Funny story is he tells me, hey, I snore. My wife actually thinks I need a sleep study, but I don't have whatever that crap is. I'm fine. I just snore. A week into it, I said, hey, buddy, I'm going to start taking bets on this floor when you're dead because you died 4 times last night. The longest one was 30 seconds before you breathe. You need to get a sleep study. So a week later, he's like, hey, you know what? I think you're right. I think I'm going to get a sleep study. Good man, though. So this is the early years, 1935, 1945. Like I said, the first class was 23 students, graduated in 1935. Back then, by the early 1940s, they were doing about 200 students a year from this program. The goal was to standardize training and send them back to build out training at their agencies and then start building out the partnership with federal law enforcement. I know that's a touchy subject in today's day and age, depending on what agency we're working with, but I promise you, our partnership with federal law enforcement, especially FBI, ATF, DEA, is astronomical in our ability to fight crime, to combat crime, especially organized high-end elements that work interstate. So it's a very advanced thing they were doing back then to start building out what we have today. By 1940s, all 48 states were representative. I know there's 50 states. That's weird why they said that. To each their own. There was a couple of states that had distance issues. So 48 of the lower 48 were represented is what it means to say. Hawaii, Alaska. Remember back in 1940s, those were not cheap flights and agencies did not have a lot of money to include the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which, as far as I know, has always paid 100% of the training. Side note, it's the most expensive free training you'll ever go to because I spent well over 10 grand because you have to pay for everything there outside of your 3 meals a day and your room and board. So if you want to go to a hockey game, you got to go pay. If you want to go to dinner, you got to go pay. If you want to go to a show, you got to pay. You want to fly your wife out to see her for a weekend, you got to pay. It gets very costly. Originally, it covered investigation, scientific crime detection, and police administration. Program expanded rapidly as demand for local agencies far exceeded what they could do. World War II changed it. Remember, World War II times, a lot of our law enforcement officers were also in the military or they signed up. Great story my great-great-grandmother told me was that in that day and age, the 16, 15-year-olds were lying on their birth certificates to go sign up. When that war hit, every person, especially of the male gender, was signing up and leaving. So we had a very big strain on our local law enforcement and our federal law enforcement. Curriculum adapted during wartime, and again, this is one of the great things about this school is it adapts with the times, was they added in espionage and sabotage detection. Think back to your old James Bond 007, and added in ways to detect those type of things going on. And then the academy, again, was established as a reputation for the West Point of law enforcement. This is really cool. We had a private tour from a Capitol police officer. So that's actually the speaker's balcony. We're all on taking a picture. I picked this picture for a very good reason. We'll find out later on what year the first international student graduated from the program. But all the way to the left, that gentleman is from Canada, and Canada was the first international student. So it's kind of a full circle with him being in our class. In that group, we have represented Thailand, we have represented the Middle East, and then of course a lot of agencies from across the United States. So this is kind of the move to Quantico and when it left DC. So again, like I said, 1935 was at the original Department of Justice building. By 1940s, because of World War II, it was temporarily relocated to Marine Corps Base Quantico. Marine Corps Base Quantico is about 20 miles south of Washington, D.C. along I-95. It is a massive Marine Corps base, and it is true to form as a Marine Corps base. As a former Marine, the nostalgia was over in about 12 minutes. You're on a Marine Corps base. 1972 was the permanent move to Quantico, Virginia. They built a state-of-the-art training campus there. Has anybody seen the movie Silence of the Lambs?
Yes.
Remember the opening scene where she's running around and there's the school and they go get her to go see the director? And it's still the same paint. It's still the same handrails. It looks exactly the same on the inside as that movie in 91 as the day it was built in 72. Not a lot of update. The Jefferson Building opened in 87, which expanded the campus significantly. The Jefferson Building is actually under a massive remodel. They added 10 stories to it. That is where they will house all of the academies. So every student will be in the Jefferson Building and the other buildings will get revamped for other trainings that partner with DA, ATF, other local agencies that go out there train for like a week at a time. But Jefferson Building is being completely remodeled with state-of-the-art dorms and it'll house close to 600 students when it's done. So curriculum evolution from basic police techniques to world-class leadership training, right? These are kind of the topics that they covered. Everyone there has to take 6 classes for a total of 18 college credit hours at the bachelor's or master's level, which is certified through the University of Virginia. Everyone takes fitness and tactics. For this class, and because national practices have gotten so good, we don't do a lot of tactics, but every day there's a physical training. And one of the great things about it is for a lot of officers, we get stuck in shift work, we get stuck eating unhealthy, we get stuff neglecting our health. So not only do we do fitness every day, but we also have core studies in teaching how to build out fitness programs, how to build out training regimens for even your young officers on shift work to do for 30 minutes and get a full body workout. Behavior sciences. So it talks about criminal profiling, interview, and crisis negotiations. The classes are very advanced compared to that. My behavioral science portion was actually crisis negotiations. It was ran by a former FBI agent, DeFonso. He has since retired. He has spent 10 years teaching at the FBI Academy. For all of you that are historians, DeFonso was the negotiator on Captain Phillips from his boxers in his living room via satellite with SEAL Team 6. He was the lead negotiator on The Boy in the Bunker in Alabama in 99? 99, 98, something like that. World-class experiences and who he was. And that's kind of how this goes is you get taught by instructors and FBI agents, but like my civilian instructor was Aisha Johnson, the best class I've ever taken at any university level. And she is a PhD level FBI employee, not agent, civilian, and instructor for the University of Virginia. And a really down-to-earth, awesome person. So you get world-class instruction. Cyber investigations, I didn't take that course. I doubled up on something else. But again, it is, from the guys I talked to and classmates, world class. One of the things, did anybody watch the debate and the discussion last night on Channel 7 with the Republican candidates and the Democratic candidates for mayoral? Okay, sorry, for governor. One of the things that Sam Bregman talked about that is a fact. We have not updated our juvenile code in the state of New Mexico since before 1991. That means before the iPhone, the laptop, the tablet. And we wonder why our laws won't keep up with intervening at lower levels to save these kids before they become hardened criminals. So these are things we need to think about. I try not to make all your time. There's the tree, guys. Remember from Science and Lambs? That tree is really there. Those signs are really there. They say about every 10 years they repaint them. So at the end of this course, one of the culminating events is the Yellow Brick Road obstacle course. It's 6.2 miles. You run the Marine Corps officer obstacle course through the woods, over the hardball, and across the campus. 6.2 miles. It's really a team builder and a lot of fun. It's a great end of the event obstacle course. However, it's not very fun. As you can see, my legs, my knees were flaring up, and I actually did a lateral partial tear of my left Achilles. So I ran it on a torn Achilles. It was beautiful. This is kind of where we're at sitting today. The program's 11 weeks. You get 800 hours of academic instruction across the 11 weeks. You earn college credit from the University of Virginia. Main focuses are leadership, law enforcement, behavioral science, forensics, and fitness. It culminates with the Yellow Brick Road, and the graduates receive the coveted FBI credential, National Academy credential. Right now, the class is sitting at about 250 students per class. We had 254 in my class, 253 graduated. They are bumping that up. In class 300, I was 297, 298 is going on right now. So class 300, they're going to bump that to 380. And by 301, they want to be at 300 per the direction from Director Patel. He wanted 5 classes a year. They can't do it with the resources, so they're going to just bump up to 300. Since 1935, over 50,000 graduates from the National Academy. Sounds like a big number, right? Anybody want to take a guess at how many law enforcement officers are in the United States right now if you only count state and local and federal? So not international, not military, because we had military guys in here from NCIS and all that, just state and local and federal and local.
250,000.
500,000. So from 1935, we graduated 50,000. That's where you get the model for this course is less than 1% get to ever attend the school. Right now, 166 countries are represented. One of the cool things is they have one of those big giant maps that's magnet, and everybody puts a pin on there where they're from. I made some great friends from Qatar, from United Arabs, from Dubai, from the best person I met, not to get too deep in the weeds, but a man named Mohammed from Nigeria. He is the 3rd in command of the National Nigerian Police Force, which is 300,000 strong. He has over 96,000 reports under him. He is passing up the promotion to 2nd in command because he has taken a special duty station as the liaison for Nigeria to NATO. When that man speaks, you shut the up, because that is the smartest man I've ever heard speak. We got a 10-minute video. We got 5 minutes to write notes, and he gave a speech like he was talking to Parliament or Congress. I'd never seen it in my life. Amazing. So there are way better people at this job than me. I'm sorry you're stuck with me. Global impact, right? So national reach, graduates serve in all 50 states, local, state, and federal agencies. One of the things that they combine with federal is one of my best friends that I made in this class. He will be a lifelong brother. Is Master Gunnery Sergeant Cody Mills from the United States Marine Corps. He is the highest ranking enlisted Marine for the National Crimes Investigation Service for the Marine Corps. And he is the head of all of NCIS Marine Corps. So even his counterpart in Pendleton or any of the other bases answers to him. I mean, brilliant. I got to listen to some of his phone calls and meetings and to hear how he deals across a global scale with criminal investigations across the Marine Corps is amazing. So it's really cool the people we got to meet. International presence, like I said, over 166 countries carry the FBI training standard worldwide. That number is not set in stone. It can expand. However, we have to understand it's very expensive. Our officer from Dubai comes from a place where he makes probably triple what most people will make in this country, and he makes about $200 a day per diem. Plus, he gets another $300 a day emergency per diem. So he gets $500 a day to go to school. On the same token, another gentleman from, I think it was Qatar, could be wrong, another Middle Eastern country, we bought him shoes because his currency doesn't equate to US currency. He's like, I can't afford shoes. He showed up to running boots and we ran almost every day. So we all went out and bought him tennis shoes because his paycheck for the entire 3 months would not cover a pair of shoes because of the way the currency exchanges. So there's a lot of issues with international students and how they get to go to this program. Even though the FBI pays for it, they don't pay for those things you need, like uniforms, shoes, those stuff. Yes, sir.
Yeah, what country was he from?
I got to double check. I thought it was Qatar, but I could be wrong. It was a Middle Eastern country that the exchange rate wasn't good. We also, the guy from Nigeria, his exchange rate was hard. So there was a lot of things that we just paid for. Like if we went to dinner, he's like, I can't afford it. I got you. I'll buy your dinner, right? It's $50 and then we get to hang out with somebody that intelligent and learn from them. National Association. So we actually have an FBI NA association. I'm part of it for the New Mexico chapter. There's over 350 worldwide. It is just a great work to network. If you guys needed something, let's say for the gateway, and you're like, we want to know what Vegas Metro is doing, and you can't find a contact, I can probably in about 10 minutes on the app get you a contact for Vegas Metro, just because that networking. I cost you because I like being bribed, chocolate, Americanos from Starbucks, keep it low key, below the limit at AP of $5, but I do like my Starbucks. Leadership pipeline. One of the things that went on there, as you see, is a lot of these guys want to become chiefs, superintendents, commissioners. It was my eye-opening experience. I want no part of that. That is not something for me. I want to come back and be the best area commander I can and leave here in about 3.5 years to retirement and move on to the next phase of my life. But for those people that want to go to that realm, it's a great way to get there. We'll kind of speed through some of this, but like I said, this is just the timeline. The biggest thing on this timeline was 84 was the first international graduate from Canada. 9/11, we expanded the curriculum to terrorism and homeland security, which was a very big ad for that course. And then obviously in the 2010s, we had to add the cyber and digital forensics. They will be adding in the next year or two AI. They will have to add how we do AI. I will tell you right now, I use AI a lot just for like basic memo prep writing, things like that. And if you use it right, it's a great tool, but it can be abused. And I'm interested to see where it goes in the criminal element. They're already using AI for scams, things like that. So that'll get added. I think I already put that picture up, but again, just a little bit better of everybody. Obviously, modern era, these are the things that we're teaching now. We've kind of talked about them. The biggest one was the diversity and inclusion. That's the one Aisha Johnson taught. It's called Breaking Barriers, where we went through and we learned about any culture we want to pick. And we talked about how historically things are influenced within the culture that we have to be willing to bridge the gap before we can have productive conversation. A very easy example of that is if we go into a Black community, or we go into a predominantly Hispanic community or white community, and we bring our views from our family, it's not going to work. I can't take my family and go into somebody else's family and use that view, right? So if I go right now into a Native American culture, I'll probably offend the heck out of them if I don't ask first, like, well, what do we do? What is it? How do you want to be addressed? Who do I talk to? When I was in Iraq in the Marine Corps, the worst thing that I ever saw that almost caused a gunfight was one of our Marines started trying to talk to one of the females in front of him, not realizing he was just trying to get basic instruction, not realizing like that was a no-no. Like it almost caused an international incident, right? So there's these things we have to learn about. Yes.
How many women are in this class?
So for my class, I think we were sitting roughly estimate, we were sitting about 38 females. There is no limit. There is no predetermined number. It's you apply, you get selected. But that number was actually probably heavy compared to female representation in the law enforcement community. So it was a good number. Just like international students, we had 28 out of the 250, which was a very good representation for our international partnerships. And I will tell you, there were 3 women that I learned more from than most people I've worked with in my entire career. And two of them remind me a lot of your new appointed chief of police. I mean, smart, intelligent, willing to listen, and made decisions based on best information at the time, because we had group projects and things that went on that they led a lot of. This is kind of the end, guys. That's me getting my yellow brick. It's one of the big symbols of the course. When you graduate after the obstacle course, you get your little yellow brick that you get to display. Mine's in the garage collecting dust. It's up on the wall. I have a very big issue with displaying personal things. One of the best things I've ever heard, I don't know who said it, but if there's a story to tell about you, somebody else will tell it. So all my stuff's put away at home. I don't really display too much. And then there's my graduation on stage where I got to shake the deputy director's hand for the FBI. Patel was supposed to do our class, but the night before he was called to testify in Congress. So I said, tell Congress no. Guess that's not the way it works.
Did they all have to chip in to buy you some razor blades?
No. So what was really cool, and thank God, I sent back home, I said, Chief, the showering situation was horrible. 2 men to a dorm, 4 men to a suite, 1 bathroom, 1 sink, 1 toilet. So I was like, Chief, can I not shave every day? She's like, as long as your professional photos and your graduation is shaved, I don't care. Don't shave every day. Because I had to go every morning the quarter mile to the gym to get ready. And it was rough. But what I did was, sir, because you asked, I brought the trimmer. That way I only had to go through about 1.5 blades. But yeah, it was really well done, the whole ceremony. This is the last thing, 9 years of shaping law enforcement, right? So again, founded in 35, over 50,000 graduates, 166 plus countries, and it's the #1 law enforcement training program. It is good and bad, but the overall side of it that I can bring back is that when there are issues and problems that you guys bring to me, not only can I think of ways to do it that we would do it internally through PD or through the state and what our training centers are, I can now reach out to thousands of people, even worldwide, and say, hey, this is the issue. What's something you guys are trying? What's a different way it can be handled? Some things will never work here. We just don't have the culture or we don't have the resources. But there were a lot of cool things that I think will work here. And one of them we'll talk about in a second. And then last but not least, I don't think anybody, well, let me rephrase that. I don't think there is a good man in the world without a amazing wife. That is my wife, my son, and my daughter. That is the reason why I do what I do. They're in this city. They live in this city. My wife runs a business in this city. My kids go to school in this city. And I thought it was very important. I don't really show pictures of my family too much, but I thought it was important for you guys to understand what it is that drives me to do what I do day in and day out. Any questions? Yes, sir.
So obviously this is a big deal. Do you know, it's 250 class, how many people apply? What percentage get selected?
So on that, I don't know exactly. I can tell you the state of New Mexico. I first competed against all of the qualified applicants, about 100 in APD. Once APD selected me, I competed against the county. So SO and state. Once I was selected for that, I competed against the state. So there were 3 rounds of competitions. Then I had 2 forensic interviews with the FBI and another background check before I was selected and sent to the course. It took over a year for me to get my acceptance and to go. It is a process. There are some states that don't have that process. But it's ended bad when they don't do the process. We did have one guy who got himself kicked out for alcohol issues. We did have one guy who got himself kicked out for integrity issues, again, wrapped around alcohol. So even at my level, there are people who make poor decisions. And I think at everyone's level, in any profession or even personal lives, there are people that just make poor decisions. But yeah, it's a very hard program to get into. The rules on it are pretty stringent, lieutenant or above, or the equivalent. So there was a couple sergeants, but their departments go sergeant to captain to chief because they're smaller agencies. So their sergeants are considered watch commanders, so they allow sergeants. But for the most part, you have to be a lieutenant above. You have to have more than 15 years in law enforcement, and you have to be willing to dedicate 3 more years to your department. You can't. They don't want somebody to go and then just retire and take the resume builder to go get the big job in civilian world. So one of the things I learned there, and I talked about this a little bit in District 7, it wasn't as eloquent because I was kind of caught off guard because I had just gotten back. But one of the things I learned that I think I want to bring back here and I want to impose on you good people is what we're doing tonight here. We all need to work to expand it to getting our neighbors involved, getting the community involved, because law enforcement can't do it, the Gateway Center can't do it, solid waste can't do it on their own, Bernalillo County can't do it on their own. So we have these meetings and we talk about resources and reaching out. But one of the sad things I heard today, I had a meeting with the new District 6 president, Sandra Greta. We had an alleyway cleanup and there were only 2 people there cleaning up. Yet the alleyway program, since we started the beautification on the alleyways, the regeneration of them, the cleaning up of them, which we did, you guys did the first one in the South San Pedro, how long ago? About a year and a half?
That was in August of 2024.
Okay. So tracking the numbers from January of 25, when I took over the area command with those alleyways, we have reduced our calls over 60% for alleyway issues in the South San Pedro and this whole area. The homeless encampments aren't in them the way they were. The trash isn't being dumped as frequently as it was. We're not getting the intrusion into the private residence from the alleyways. Like, it really helps and getting the neighborhood buy-in. So if I could ask one thing, and that is, we need to take what we do at this meeting, but also follow through on the community outreach events. We all can't be at every single one. I get that. But if we can be there, we need to be there. And if we can partner to help get more resources. So one of the things I told Sandra was the next alleyway cleanup, let me know. I'll get it with our community outreach lady, Angela Navarro, and I will try to figure out how we can get, whether it's solid waste to send a truck and a crew, or whether we get officers to come by and help on their time off, or we get more information out through social media just to get more of the neighborhoods involved so it's out there better. But we all need to take an active role. Every officer I talked to that has had good success with retaking their neighborhoods, reducing crime, helping connect services to the at-risk populations, neighbors, the neighborhoods took the initiative. And we see it with what Natalie and Sandra are doing. And we all need to be a part of that. And I'm here as your commander to try to be a part of that as well. So let me know I can help. Sandra?
Now,
Now, Sandra, look, man, they're like my twin sisters. Keep me alive. I get both.
so some good news on that is that South San Pedro was actually awarded the National Park Service grant. And that's a technical assistance grant that we were awarded that we hope to just grow bigger and bigger. And right now we're working with the city of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, UNM DPAC, a couple other people, and I apologize, I'm not doing them. But just to grow this way bigger, and they're gonna help us do that. So we're actually getting a steering committee together right now to work on that. So the community engagement and all that, it's in the works. What's it called again? National Park Service grant. And it's a technical assistance grant. So, congratulations.
That's all I have, sir.
That's all you have.
Any questions? Anything I can answer? Oh, Wally, what do we got?
This is easy, no. I'm wondering, because it's an international school, if there's anything that was withheld from the international people to give you a leg up or an advantage
Absolutely not.
in the police field. So
Absolutely not.
everything is on the table and
So
everybody
there-
gets the same stuff.
Yes, so there are secured areas, there are things that the FBI has that we weren't allowed to see because we're not full agents. But if you were a student, you got full access as a student to what all students get access to. They do, from what I understand and what we were told, they do a very good job of vetting the international students, and it's from our partnership countries. But that doesn't mean things don't change. Things change in the world, but I will tell you, I thought it was just an amazing program when it came to the networking with all the students. They do so much around networking. So much of your day was built in networking. The group projects, the class projects, the after class events, the different things, the socialization events. The international night was one of my favorite nights because all the international students get a partner and they bring their best dishes, their best food, their best drinks, and alcohol is allowed because it's after hours in the tent. So like the Canadian guy, I love bourbons. I don't drink often. When I do, I like bourbon. He brought a Canadian whiskey. Couldn't tell you if it was good or not because he mixed it with a homemade maple syrup. It was poison. It was pure candy in your mouth. I was like, how do you stop drinking this? At least with a 2-finger bourbon. I'm like, hey man, I got a limit. I'm good. It's worth. No, it was amazing. The Middle Eastern students and the African students, 2 of them, they had some dishes that I never thought in my life I would try, but they were just I mean, explosions to your palate of different flavors and so well done that you just really, it was just a really cool night. It was all those experiences that, what I'll tell you is this Saturday is a Turkish festival. You get a chance to make it out because you will get a plethora of food there. You will never try again unless you purposely go looking for it, and it is homemade. They have a big open market on the street. I think it's a little bit to get in, but once you're in, you buy just your food pass. And the Turkish festival is right at Pennsylvania and Lomas, just north. 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday.
As a Turkish person, I recommend.
Yeah. You know, like another one that's great. My wife goes every October to the Greek festival. Like another one with just amazing food. But this international night, you just tried so many things. You were like, I am missing out. So we love to travel. That's what we do is try all the local cuisine. But it was just a great event. It was really cool school. Like I said, the only thing that was bad for me. So I'm a family man. I was homesick the entire time. And again, that's what led to me spending so much money was I flew home twice on my own dime. I flew my wife out twice. When the kids and wife came out, we did a 12-day road trip home because we went and showed them the entire East Coast to the Midwest, all in between Smoky Mountains, everything you could think of. Any other questions?
How, what changes will you make, or how will you perform your job now differently than you did before you went to this training?
I will, first and foremost, personally, the number one personal change I will make is I will stop defaulting to the APD way. It's all I know. We call it being inbred. I was born and raised in EPD, became a cop through APD Academy, worked all the way up through the ranks. I will now stop defaulting to that, and I will make a concerted effort to reach out to ideas outside of APD. Maybe that's just my BCSO counterparts, my state police. Maybe that's guys I met in this class. Maybe that's just my officers who came from other agencies. How would you do this at a small agency, a big agency, a self-suffice agency, right? Our state police officers, they may be doing a traffic stop, and the very next thing, because they're in rural New Mexico, be doing a full homicide investigation and have the whole thing. So I will stop defaulting to the APD way. That is the internal change myself I will make. The Southeast picture scale change that I want to make is I want my officers to increase tenfold their non-law enforcement contacts. So we are starting a couple different programs, citywide and within the area command to try to get the officers to have more engagement outside of a law enforcement contact. Because one of the things I learned from all these other officers from around the country was it just builds a bank account for that rainy day you need to make a withdrawal that you can get the brakes pumped before the full-on catastrophe starts. It's like, hold on, you know us. You know us outside of this event. Let us do the investigation and be transparent. Give us the time. And we've seen that already with how well things have gone with us getting through the DOJ and working with community. But now if we increase that, even at the officer level, I think we can really make strides that way. And that's not just with the businesses. That's not just with the good folks here. They got to do it on the streets with the people at risk. Because if we build that rapport, we'll get more out of it when we have to deal with them in a law enforcement capacity. Yes, ma'am.
I love that. Thank you for thinking that way. I think that's a beautiful answer to this question and a beautiful solution to communities' growth. And I, as somebody who appreciates data, I would encourage you to establish a baseline somehow, somehow, something work with your, I'm not sure who does your data analysis, but establish some kind of baseline so that then you can take that not just to this area, but you can take it to others and say, this is what we've done, this is how we've done it, and these are so and because I am confident you're going to see good reports.
Absolutely. And so we do have an amazingly robust data analyst group at APD and through our real-time crime center. Plus we have our own analyst from the RTC for the Southeast Area Command. She's actually helping me work on a couple different things now. Laura Keen's helping on one of the initiatives with our Adopt a Business program. And so we are working through these things, but you're right. We will get that baseline so we know how progress grows or how not progress goes. And if we need to make changes. I think data is I think it's probably the second most important tool in law enforcement in moving forward. I think first though is personal interaction, and we've got to get personal interaction. I remember when I got hired, and actually I had Ben Baker from the governor's office in the substation today, and he goes, I love what's going on today in law enforcement, especially here with your area command, because when I worked this area command 25 years ago as a rookie, the old salts were like, nah, it's us versus them, don't talk to them. He goes, you have completely changed that. Not me personally, I mean, APD has changed that. But remember, we got forced to change it. And those of us that were there before DOJ, through DOJ, and now after it, that have seen all that evolution, now it's my job to give that to my young officers who don't know, right? It's like the cameras. They don't know a life without camera. That's a good thing 95% of the time, but we still have to tell them about the life before camera where your word was gold. So your word today has to match the camera to stay gold. Your word was this or that. The camera is your tool to either verify what you're saying is accurate and support you and show you are a stand-up cop, or it's going to destroy you. You pick which way you want to use that tool. So thank you. We will get that. We will work on that. We're gonna have to think outside the box on some of it, but we will.
Quantifying those personal interaction.
Yes.
We're doing that with the walking school bus at APD. We do glows, like, really good interactions that the kids have with people and APD and everyone else. But they are tracking that data right now on that level. So it's been great. So we have a lot.
I love the walking school bus, by the way.
Yeah.
I love the walking school bus. It's probably, if there will be one thing when I retire that I'll be most proud of, is being a part of that. Mainly Cassandra and Natalie asked me to. Thought they were like, hey, we need to talk to you. I was like, oh, what did I do? Go ahead, Wally.
I want to say this is the second time I've seen you since you got back. And I can tell a difference in your attitude towards people and how you listen to the question and how you respond to them already. So you're well on your way to doing, I think, what you have set out, the changes to yourself that you've set out to make. And the other thing is, as far as interacting with the people in the community, I've only heard of one coffee with a cop in the last year. So I was wondering if that program is still alive.
It's still alive. It's going on all the time. What I can do, Wally, is I got your email. We'll make sure you know about the next one. But I encourage everyone, even if you don't want to, I know some of us are long in the tooth. You got to get on social media. It's the way of the world. Get on social media. Even if you have your grandson or granddaughter, set you up an account. That way you can follow APD's page. You can follow Bernalillo County's page, whether it's the Sheriff's Department or it's the outreach groups, ACS, and you will get notifications for all these events. We do an email list, but again, a lot of times we can't control your algorithm, your filters. And if it goes to your junk box, you may never see it. But the social media, everything APD does is up there all day, every day. Like, did everybody know that we just hosted New Mexico United at our reality-based training center? Who knew? See, but if you're on social media, you would have got the whole thing on that. We did a team builder with New Mexico United. It was really cool. Coaches reach out to us. They're like, hey, we're not as good as we used to be. And these guys aren't talking. They don't have no team building. We need to do team builder. Put them through scenarios, stressed them out, had them have to talk. What a great way to interact with athletes who will go out and advocate for my cops now. They were awesome. We got to do all these cool things they do and play around with their tools and their equipment. So we'll get you on the email list, Wally, but also I highly recommend everybody get on social media. It's just, and I don't like it. I didn't want to be on it. My son and my niece were the ones that were like, no one does that, Dad. This is how we learn today. I'm like, all right.
And we're actually hosting one Saturday at the University Area Command. It's for our deaf and hard of hearing community, but you all are welcome to come. There'll be static displays by a lot of our specialized units like SWAT and crime scene investigators, and bombs should be there. So you can come out to that one. And we have one coming up on the 16th that Natalie's helping with at the 505 supermarket right across from your hood.
Yeah.
And that's in the hood.
It's a 505 market.
If I remember correctly, the last one I went to was in your backyard.
Yeah.
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 In the alleyway.
Yep.
So I encourage everyone to host Coffee and a Cop. It's really fun. And really good donuts that we bring.
And my disclaimer,
Yeah.
I won't be at Coffee with a Cop this Saturday because I will be at the Turkish Festival and my wife works this Saturday for her business. So I have the kids. So we're doing the Turkish Festival as a family. I'm taking the kids out there. I think they need to go broaden their horizons. nothing else, my son will just eat everything.
Here,
Listen,
I'm gonna ask an impossible question that I can't answer. How's Albuquerque doing compared to, well, I know you had such a huge variety of fellow students, but one of the problems people are always talking about is the homeless situation. And then for some reason, they say that we've got a really huge, we're really high on crime. I personally haven't seen it, but goodness. But anyway, how do you think we compare? I know it's hard.
so by a data ways, comparing is hard because each city not only has different population, different size, different geographic features, different square footage, acreage. So it's always hard to compare. Comparing by like cities, we're right in the middle, depending on the categories, good, bad, in that middle range, depending on what we're looking at. Here's what I will tell you. In what I learned in this nation, so not international, just the United States. The problems we have here that are front and center for law enforcement are the same in every city across this nation.
Nationwide.
They are at different levels. They are at different extremes, and they are approached differently by the political leaders of those cities, those states, but they're the same problem. New York City has a homeless issue. LA has a homeless issue. Phoenix has a homeless issue. Dallas has a homeless issue. I named those 4 cities purposely because I gave you 2 left-leaning and 2 right-leaning cities. But we approach them differently. We approach them the same, depending on the category. If you ask me the model for addressing homelessness, I will still tell you after my peer-to-peer exchange program, Vegas Metro, because they believe in stabilization, treatment, education, and then housing. But they have the infrastructure for it. They have the detox facilities. They have the secured facilities. They have the educational facilities because they have one thing we don't have and we will never have. Huh?
Who is this?
Vegas, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Las Vegas.
They have one thing we will never have. And I watched it happen. They go to the casino and they say, we need money for this. And the casino says, how's that going to help us? It keeps it off the strip. Here's a blank check. I mean, millions of dollars. So when their city council says there's no more tax revenue, there's no more money for this, like what Jennifer's doing tonight, they can go to the casinos and the casinos will make a point donation for that program. We don't have that. We are a uniquely cultured city, but we are not unique in our problems. We have some things that do work and some things that don't work. I think the Gateway Center, my personal opinion, can work, but it probably needs to be expanded tenfold. Just my opinion. But I think it can work, and they're showing that it works with what they have now, which, are you guys past 50 beds yet for the men's group?
Well, I don't handle the men's shelter.
So the men's,
Yes, is that?
92.
92, right? So we're expanding it, we're building it out, right? And we're working to do these things. But I think Mayor Kell said it good last year, right? We're up to roughly 1,000 beds with overflow. But we need probably 5,000. Then we need the people to want to go to those beds and we have to educate them. One of the things I still hear from the unhoused population is, we don't like Gateway West. We get robbed there, we get mugged, it's dirty, it's this, that. That facility is nice now that it's been redone. But education and perception is always lagged by 5 years. So to answer your question in a nutshell, we're not unique in our problems, but we are unique in our culture. And I think that's what gives us the greatest leg up to solving these issues. It's because we are a very cultural diverse, but culturally strong community. We believe in family. We believe in hard work. We believe in taking care of each other. When I was in New York City, and I'm not trying to badmouth New York City, you will never get me to go back to that city. I don't care what you do, because it was like being at the zoo. Don't ever tell me New York City is a melting pot, is a salad bowl. From this avenue to this avenue, Italian. This avenue to this avenue, Jewish. This avenue, Greek. This avenue, Muslim. This avenue, black. This avenue, white. And it's a giant concrete jungle, and it's like being at the zoo. I went from the lions, the tigers, to the bears. It was the craziest thing. They don't talk, they don't intermingle, they're not friendly. They stick to their own. It is a segregated city with issues that I don't understand. Now, I wasn't raised there, so I don't get that culture. I'm just saying what we have here, we're not unique in our problems. We're unique in our culture. And I think we can solve this. And I think we solve it by community involvement first. Second, we have to support the programs that are working for all of us that are in charge, whether it's you, Brittany, which congratulations, you weren't here when I left. Doug, you, Sir Robert, myself, Sandra with District 6. We also have to be humble enough to say, this part isn't working. We got to change it. That's my opinion.
And also, help from keeping people from homeless, right?
Absolutely.
Campus.
No.
When that flood happened.
Well, it's a multifaceted problem that we have to have all of it. It's the same thing though. We have to address the juvenile code, not because I want kids in jail, because we have to be able to intervene and get them to services when they're committing a low-level crime, not wait till they're going to jail for 20 years. We have to be able to intervene with people's ability to have a job, affordability. I don't really like the affordability argument in certain senses, and I'll give you my example. Affordability, groceries, electric bill, roof over the head, necessities, we need to fix that. That is an issue. We have a completely free transit city. Don't talk to me about gas. If you can't afford it, park your car, ride the bus because it is free in the city. I was just in cities, you know what they charge you to ride the bus in DC? It ain't free. $250 to $350 each direction. You're spending 10 to 12 bucks a day. Who can afford that when you're in the city 5 days a week, 60 bucks a week, 180, 240 bucks a month? All of a sudden you're multiplying this out and you're talking about, we're worried about just do I need groceries or electric? So we have a very strong avenue here with the free transit. Not saying that gas prices aren't an issue, but that would be the one thing that if I had to cut something, cool, I'm walking, I'm riding a bike, I'm getting on the bus. Food, food, food. I hate seeing hungry kids and I see it every day. I don't know how we fix that though. That's a question above my pay grade.
So I just spent Saturday cleaning up bus stops along San Mateo here.
Oh yeah.
And that's one, I'm not gonna sit in that bus stop and wait for a bus.
So what you do is you send that to me, I'll get it to Transit Authority and we'll start working on not only the cleaning, but the rehab of it. Get the benches fixed, get it painted, make it to where it's not the spot they want to hide. I need to know those things, right? What other questions, guys? Yeah, how you doing, sir?
Good. I think this is just hypothetical. Let's just say that by the end of the month or end of next month, every person who is presently unhoused in Albuquerque was in a place with an address. So that everyone in the city was as place identifiable as any of us are. We all have addresses, so on and so forth. What impact would that have on APD's ability to then focus on its core mission of public safety and crime and so on? If you didn't have the potential of trying to distinguish who among a giant nomadic population were committing crimes or just vulnerable victims.
So one of the things that I would have to know on that variable is, are we talking about everyone has an address like an apartment, a house, whatever, and they have been stabilized?
Well, some of them would be in the process of, they'd be in transition, but because it's not gonna happen overnight, obviously.
Well,
But they would have a
I
known
guess
location.
my answer to that is every direction that I give to my officers in the Southeast Area Command is to enforce laws. One of the things that bothers me, and I'll be frank, I don't really care, I can retire, so I'll just be honest. I hate seeing, whether it's social media, on a Channel 7 News, or anywhere else, oh look, the cops are just out harassing homeless. My cops don't deal with unhoused individuals unless there is a crime being committed. If there is not a crime being committed, they offer resources, they call ACS, and they get their butts to the next call, to the next crime. I don't have the resources. Do you know how many cops I have for the Southeast, sir? 54. For 3 shifts a day, 7 days a week. When I came on this department, the Southeast had 122. Now, granted, we split, but even if I combined back with the university, I'd only be sitting at about 90. We're still down 30 some cops. They don't have the time to deal with anything but what they see as criminal activity. And I would tell you, based on the numbers I'm seeing, we're somewhere between 80 and 90% that what they're enforcing is felony level. Now, you may not like the felony because it's usually drug possession, but it is still a felony crime on the books. And until the legislatures change that, we have to enforce that felony crime. We don't really get as much leeway with as we would like a traffic ticket, right? Or discretion. If you gave them all an address, yes, we may not be dealing with the large population of them at central Vermont like you'll see today, even though I've had cops out there every day for the last 2 weeks. Dealing with the felonious crime in that area, not the unhoused. Unhoused get dealt with by ACS, Nest, and by services. Here's what I would wonder about. We transfer the problem from the large group to multiple apartments. What does that do to your apartment complex? What does that do to your neighborhood? What does that do to your neighborhood? And what does that bring into the neighborhood that now is twice as hard for us to find because of privacy rules, because of Fourth Amendment rules? One of the things they saw in Denver with Housing First is they had an uptick in overdoses and in drug houses instantly, overnight. And then they ran into the issue of, well, there's a weird smell. No one's seen so-and-so. He has a drug addiction, but it's not really enough to get a warrant to go in. So by the time they were getting enough to go in, it was 3-4 days. Then you had other issues going on with that and biohazard stuff. I think that in a perfect world, fully stabilized, everyone in houses, utopia, it would help. But having said that, if that utopia existed, I probably wouldn't have a job. And I'm being serious because if everyone was stabilized, working with an apartment, taking care of themselves, crime would drastically shift.
We had a fair amount of crime in the 70s.
Yes, you got a fair amount.
But we didn't have a significant unhoused population.
It would beg to differ because the data I've seen there was. It wasn't what it is today, but there was. Now, I also wasn't around your neighborhood in the 70s, but I would suggest, or I would not suggest, I would hypothesize that your neighborhood was drastically different 50 years ago, 55 years ago, because you had young invested families, not houses that have been passed down generational to people with substance abuse or abandoned or bought by out-of-state renters or landlords. There's a lot of things that change neighborhoods, and it's not just.
I lived in the South Valley. I lived in the Terrace Park, Mobile Home Park, Zuni in Wyoming. Honestly, I'm not BSing. It was we had crime,
Yeah.
but we did not have a significant population of them. And we did not have fentanyl. Heroin was a lot more expensive, so it was less.
Well, and again, my grandfather, who I never met, died at 42. He was a lifelong heroin addict, gangbanger. Like, I never met him, thank God, because I probably wouldn't have got along with him. But I mean, we're talking about a man who was victimizing people across the South Valley for years. He was actually did a 15-year stint for armed robbery, shooting a guy. And then at 42, he had a heart attack and died right when the feds were about to indict him for armed robbery and laundering scheme through United Rentals he was working for. They were stealing all the equipment and selling it. Like, there's things that happen everywhere. I would love to live in that world where we got more housing because I think it would solve a lot of social issues. It would solve a lot of quality of life issues. Crime, I think crime shifts, and that's all we do. We broke up the mobs in the 80s and 90s in New York. Still organized crime. It's just called cartels now. So I think it just shifts, but I would love to see it for the humanity side. I think everybody should have a roof over their head and a place to shower. Who here has been to a third world country? Literally operate in a country where the water they bathed in was the same water they dumped their waste in, was the same water they boiled to drink the Euphrates River in Iraq. Turning on a shower is one hell of a luxury, especially when you have hot water that works.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, go ahead.
Because I can speak a bit. I love how you said, I wrote it down, the stabilization, treatment, education, and then housing, because we do outreach with the in-house at the sheriff's office. And something that, our program's been going on for about 2.5 years now. Something I've noticed is there are people that will reach out to me, that have been reaching out to me and stayed connected over the last couple of years, and they've gotten housed, but they don't have the skills to keep their housing. So like Commander said, the crime is just shifting where it's happening. So people who are using in the streets are now using in their homes. And they're exposing their children to it in the homes. And my background is in child abuse. And I think when resources, not that resources shouldn't go to the house, because they should, but New Mexico is the last in child welfare, I think, still in the country. And the more resources that are poured into children, to juvenile justice, all of that, then you're gonna address the trauma and the reasons that cause people to use or to not have the education to keep their housing, to not have the money skills to, like my mother was adopted. Her biological family was a mess. And the only reason she, grew up and came out okay with the skills needed to survive was because she was adopted by a family that had those skills, right? But had she been born and not adopted into that family, she could have been, any one of the people that we see out on the streets. So there's a lot of, I think, change that needs to happen when people are young. But if that change doesn't happen, there needs to be education and support for people in order to be able to have the money skills, the skills learning how to cook, the skills how to interact with your neighbors so that you don't, tick them off because you're, there are a lot of calls we hear that, some pretty crazy things. But it's kind of at different levels, if that makes sense.
But that transition that they need to make, acquisition of daily living skills and all those are unlikely to occur while they're living on the sidewalk.
No, but if there are places you can get them into or services that you can get.
But that's what
Yeah,
I mean, if you were to do this in the near term, it would mean putting people into a transitional context.
yes.
The difference would be that rather than being under the sun or under the snow or rain
Right.
and pretty much defenseless from any bad elements that might be in that context, they would be contained and sheltered. But obviously you've got to have tremendous amount of wraparound services of various types for substance behavior and as well as life skills.
This has been a great, I don't mean to cut it off, this has been a great conversation. And I appreciate very much you sharing your time. I think it stimulated a lot of good ideas and a really valuable exchange of information tonight. I want to keep that going in the future. We have at least two things that we want to do before we conclude tonight. We want to give you all the updates that we do every month, and then we need to decide what we want to put together for next time as well. So and I don't mean to just stop it, but we are running out of time, and Whitney's gonna do our update and then we'll go from there.
Great, yeah, so let's go to the Gateway Programs document, if you don't mind. And I'll try to go through this quickly again. We want to make sure we give time to set some agenda items for next time. The bed capacity has not really changed since the last meeting. But you'll see the numbers starting March there on the top. Our highest number in terms of age range continues to be that 41 to 50 age range, and that has been pretty consistent here. Pretty far across all of these. So here on the first, we've got Gateway West, Gateway First Responder, Gateway Family. If you'll go to the next page, here are some of the Gateway Center programs. With Women's Housing Navigation Center. And then finally with men's there on the back. Does anybody have any questions about any of these? I know that there have been times when folks have asked for more distinct data. That's something Flora wanted me to ask you all about. Are these numbers helpful for you all?
The only thing I would find helpful, I suppose there's some way to extrapolate it, but it would be interesting to know what if there was a way to calculate percentage of capacity that was used over the course of the month. So for example, see if, as the weather warmed, does the number of people at Gateway West decline?
Yeah, we do calculate that, and I'll pass that along to Flora. Again, she wanted to know what kinds of data points you're looking for. So that is something we're seeing this year, and as I've been looking through the historical data, that is something that we have seen pretty consistently. What I've seen in the data in the last month or so for Gateway West is there's not a significant exit, as some may expect, but the self-exits have gone up a little bit. And this is just as we were talking about earlier, consistent across municipalities. Weather gets better, people like to be outside and be with their community members. But yeah, we can get you kind of where we've been percentage of capacity in the next meeting. Things have been, I think it depends on the space, but we've been sitting at about what I've seen is like 75 to 80% at West pretty consistently over
At West.
at West. And then here it depends on the program. We are not at full capacity in the men's or women's and haven't been. But we are pretty, it's been since yesterday since I've looked at these numbers and my brain is not fantastic at remembering this, but I want to say it's been about similar, about that like 70 to 80% capacity.
Are there parts of this building that have not been repurposed or renovated?
Oh, yeah.
A substantial amount?
Yes. Yeah, there's the whole A-wing, which is about 130,000 square feet, has not been. We have significant environmental issues and infrastructure issues over there. So that's going to take a ton of money just to even make it ready to be rehabbed. And then we have a couple of spaces up on 4 and 5 that we're working with some potential tenants for that will bring those online within the next year or so.
Have they estimated what the cost? The reason I'm asking is because of you're probably familiar with SB1 and SB3 and the whole initiative of the $1 billion trust fund to recreate or reestablish a comprehensive behavioral health care and treatment in Mexico. And my limited understanding is that we don't actually have any more in Albuquerque a pure behavioral health institutional location. You've got to go to Las Vegas, New Mexico.
That's actually the only one from the state.
Right. And given the seeming scale of behavioral health issues, having a building that potentially could contribute to that looks a positive.
So I think what drives a lot of those costs is going to be the ultimate end use of it, right? Is the finish. There's been some just wild estimates on the abatement and stuff like that, which I don't want to throw out just because it's just it hasn't been.
But it's completely untouched. It's like this stuff was before you started.
Well, but that's 1950 construction, and this is like 1975 to 1985.
Oh,
so
it's even older.
It's even older, and the HVAC systems are even more antiquated. So it's a much more complex environment.
Oh,
This has probably been asked and answered, and I apologize, but what is the capacity goal for this building? How many people realistically, if everything's refurbished to 150,000 square feet and everything, how many people would this building be able to help?
So I mean, I know that we've talked about actually putting more beds here because we have quite a few beds. What we're looking at is the support services, adding those so that we can continue to help the stabilization thing that we're talking about. And I've not heard any recent conversation about adding beds. Now in the winter we add overflow, and so we actually had an additional about 60 people a night staying here when it was cold and whatnot through the winter. It gave the CSI a closer drop off. But so we're not talking about adding capacity that way. What we really want to do is bring in, and I think we'll have some announcements in the next couple of months, some support services to help with stabilization.
so we'll bring those to these meetings as soon as we know them for sure. But we will get some info for the upcoming meetings on the capacity levels we're seeing in all the shelter locations.
Another question. What's psychiatric
Do you visit them where?
So, we have a psychiatric hospital here, we're taking behavioral health inpatient and outpatient. And so our, different organizations are now, collaborating and working, and so they're making cross referrals. So some of them will go into the psychiatric hospital that's actually here, others may go to Europe.
That could be a number of places. Hey. I want to remind you all that I am now the person who sits for the health, housing, and homelessness representative on the encampment teams that meet here in the city. So I'm working with APD, solid waste, ECS, all of those good folks on some of this. I do want to show a little bit about this 311 call sheet. If you don't mind going to the second page of that. And then APD, I'm curious if you may be able to take some of this info that we've got,
As far as,
comparative stats.
what would you like me to talk about? All of it, some of it,
The whole thing.
the whole thing?
I'm just kidding. Just what pieces that you may want to point out to the team. Because I don't have a lot of background on what this stuff is. But on these 311 calls, you can see we talked about this a couple of months ago when we were looking at the 87108 zip code. We've gone through about a quarter of the year now, and as you see, the 2025 to 2026 numbers, especially at homelessness, is a pretty significant difference on those calls. So something I like to bring up this stat when I'm talking to other communities as well. It's kind of consistent across a number of zip codes we're looking at. While the perception is that there are a significantly higher rate of people on the street, the amount of 311 calls we're getting for it is down quite a bit. So it's just something I want to point out. I think it's of interest. As you can see, we've got the gateway numbers here from December. They each have maintained sort of consistency. They have not had a wild change over these past few months. The encampment related activity is really still the dominant issue surrounding this area in March, with 479 cases there in the 87108 zip code. So again, a decline from the elevated winter peak because we were seeing folks coming here for overflow. We still don't see significant encampment visibility. I like that you brought up the alley related cleanups and work. I think that's fantastic. You can see some of these heat maps on the spine. With Wilson Park, Jack and Jill Park, and just the general area around the Gateway Center.
Oh, I like to point out that Jack and Jill Park is now considered a private park. So it's not it's not open to the public. City's trying something new where you get a permit and we can rent it to come out, anybody, so that you privately use it so that we can keep that green space. Because for too long, they haven't been able to control the situation there. So they're thinking that if we can go out there and start to get some of the neighbors to trust again and come out there and use this space, it might change the dynamic and we can keep that green space for our kids. So, for FYI.
Did they put all new equipment or did they?
They are putting a lot of new stuff.
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's great. It's really cool.
Mhm. All right, and really quickly, again, we want to be able to set some time to set an agenda next time. We've got these comparative stats for the Gibson Public Safety District and then that half-mile buffer. Again, I don't have a ton of background on this APD, so if there's any stat of interest to you here, please, by all means.
So on the first page, real quick, the biggest one, Gibson Public Safety Area, your shot spotters, they're down. That's just the reported number of shots fired that is being captured by our shot spotter technology. Our proactive work on your half mile, that's gonna be down 12%. When we look at these numbers in the half mile, it's up a little bit. Your quality of life stuff is up. Your property stuff is up, and that was to be expected for two reasons. Not for lack of anything the officers are doing, but we had an influx with the overflow shelter and a busing in system that we are trying to figure out with our partners at Gateway, with the city resources, as to, we're bringing them here for shelter at night to be safe. what are we doing in the morning instead of them just going right to the neighborhood? So we kind of learned that lesson a little bit the hard way. We got some things go on. If we go to the very last page, that's where you'll see the actual breakdown of some of the numbers. And under the property crime, you're gonna see your auto burg, your regular commercial burg, residential burg, and your theft, fraud, embezzlement, those numbers, 313 and 23. That's kind of where we wanted it as far as overall. But if we look at our 28 day to 28 day, in the last month since I've been back, we've moved resources. We looked at the problem, said, how are we going to attack this? We've worked with our partners in University Area Command. Commander Rado Greco has been gracious enough to send an extra 8 to 10 officers on Friday, Saturday to come police the Gibson area and help us with more manpower. And so all those numbers are now trending down. So the next report should show some increases in the not increases, decreases in some of the crime we're having. If you go to quality of life, disturbance calls, the 39 calls, that's such a broad category. I wish we could break that down more because that's anything. That's anything from a disturbance. There's my neighbors are screaming. It sounds like a war's going on to I don't like the kids on my lawn. They're riding their bikes through my yard, right? That all falls under that disturbance category. But if you look at some of your overall numbers, especially in violent crime, we're doing really, really good with the half mile and the Gibson area. One of the measuring sticks that I use in the area command is our violent crime. How are we attacking that, addressing that, and how are we making a difference in the quantity of violent crimes going on? And that continues to trend down. We finished all of calendar 2025 down 20% on average in every major crime category for the area command. And we are still in the green 5 to 10% in every major crime category, which if you take our year over year numbers, the improvement we had last year, I was worried we weren't going to be able to maintain it. And right now we're maintaining it. Our arrests and our enforcement for the area defense up 500 year to date from the same time last year. One of those initiatives that I'm going right now, though, to give you guys little insights, that is our data analyst right now is pulling our last 25 felony level aggravated assault arrests, who those people are, how long they were in jail, and what their history was. Because one of the things that is very hard is there is a direct correlation to the repeat crime as they go in and they come out, right? We all call it the revolving door. So what we're trying to do is see what that timeline is and then start some of our targeted focus on those crimes like we've done with some of the other crimes to work with the DA for getting them held for trial to help bring down that crime. If we believe in the model, which it's actually pretty accurate from everything I've read, that 90% of your crime is committed by 1% of your population, then with violent crime, not felonious drugs, not people that need service, violent crime, I need them to stay in jail. And so that's one of the things we're trying to work on and attack. And so that's what we're doing, not only in the area crime, but here around the Gibson Safety Corridor and the half mile. And so we've worked on those throughout summer. We'll be bringing in different resources, overtime, TAC plans. One of the things from your neighborhood, from your counselor in my meeting week before last, is we are running a 2-week, possibly 4-week operation along Lomas from San Mateo east all the way to I-40 for traffic enforcement. That'll include any traffic violation of law for our officers and with motors. For the San Pedro Revitalization District, we're running another operation for 2 weeks, possibly to 4 weeks, where we are in there and everything that is a crime is being addressed for quality of life to try to stop some of the residential and commercial crime that's been going on that she brought to my attention. Same thing here. We're doing the same thing with the speeders right behind the Ridgecrest neighborhood, and we're going to be doing a lot of enforcement here in the Gibson Safety District to try to corral some of the stuff we saw. Let me make this clear, though. I am not saying it was 100% caused by the increase in our unhoused population from the gateway going out. What it was is, and we have to understand this, they're a vulnerable population that usually have some sort of dependence on drugs, which means it brings the drug dealers, it brings the criminal element following them. So they're out in the morning from the shelter to be safe, and they got to move back to wherever they're going, whether it's here, back to Central, back to the West Side, downtown. The drug dealers follow them. And if you ever want a prime example, go out on Central on Tuesday night, find out where the Beans and Bibles is being done, and they're feeding 500 of them. Park across the street incognito, watch them leave at about 9 o'clock, and within 30 minutes, you will see nothing but cars of drug dealers and prostitutes coming in because they follow. That is another thing that we have to attack. That's why I'm working with our specialized units to target focus our drug dealers, our drug suppliers, our pimps, those type operations to work on getting the drivers of crime out of the area.
Thank you so much.
Okay, what would you all like to hear about? Yes, ma'am.
I would like to propose something because I think there's something missing from these meetings.
Okay.
That is very important, and I think that it might change something, I don't know, but if the neighborhood or just like maybe even the school comes and presents their data on what they're seeing. Because you guys present what you guys are doing here, but I don't think there's been a place where we can come and tell you, hey, this is the data we're collecting, this is what we're seeing on the streets, this is what's happening to us. So that we can actually work together to solve that problem. Because it's just us coming, okay, this is happening, but there's people tracking this stuff. I think it's really important that we have this space to come and just let you guys know what's going on.
Natalie, do you have a group in mind who's collecting some data?
Yeah, so walking school bus.
Let's have okay, so let's talk about walking school bus coming to town.
Great, thanks.
One of the things I'd like to bring up is that I'm on the participatory budget committee this year. We have $1.7 million to spend for District 6 and capital funding. So any ideas you have for spending the $1.7 million on capital improvements, I'd like to know about them and try to take them to the committee. One of the things that I'm proposing is that we duplicate the SOS program that the New Creations Church did last year, over 2 or 3 years ago. I went and visited that facility. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. If you want pictures, let me know. I'll send you the pictures I got. Because they, for $15,000, for $1,500 per pad, they have 10 by 20 pads for each tent, 10 tents in the backyard. It is so neat, so clean. And the neighbors around there, I'm going to get a campaign together to interview the neighbors around there and see what they think about it versus these tents on the street and these other things on the street. Say, which would you like to have? Would you like to have this or would you like to have this? And try to get other churches and other people. Like I just talked to a lady down the street from me. She has a huge backyard, 75 by 90 foot backyard. And you can put probably, I don't know, if you can put 10 back there, but you could. But things like that. And even the city has a vacant lot on Zuni that we could, that the city owns. We can turn that into 10 tents and have, there's lots of churches in there that would sponsor.
So the safe outdoor space.
Yeah, safe outdoor spaces. And churches have a little bit of a more of a less regulations than what the city council proposing years ago. So just, but if you have any other, like I want to propose a roundabout for my street for people to zip down the street fast at night. It is so noisy there in a war zone. Or at least have the slow down bumper things there. But if you have any ideas, let me know for your community, and we'll present them to the committee.
Thanks, Chuck. All right.
Well, I'm still interested in the 2 office towers. Somebody said that, in fact, I think it was James that said that they had and maybe Wally, that they had a ribbon cutting for the smaller of the 2 towers, the ground breaking.
That's the only ground that's been broken so far.
I see cars.
Other than windows.
I see sedans there. And it's on a pretty regular basis. I mean, in the back, I'd say that would be in the southeast corner of that lower building. I'd be curious, somebody must know what they're there for. Is there really things going on, or is there really isn't things going on?
There is a project, they're having, somebody from the that's in a redevelopment district, and so the MRA department is involved with that. And evidently the developer who was contracted with the owner, which is a Texas company, to do the smaller building, turn it into housing there. I guess they just keep bumping up against some financial issues that are delaying, but a couple of weeks ago, I was in some, I don't know, it was city council or what it was, but somebody was saying it's gonna happen, it's just moving very slowly.
Construction moves so slowly.
John. All right. Thank you all.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
It's officially adjourned, but I want to say I've been working with Chuck on some community involvement and donations. So if anybody would like to take that call to action we had earlier today about community involvement, please get in touch with me. I'd love to work with you. Get you involved.
Have some cards, Brendan?
Chief.
Wouldn't that be